All right, well, let's get going here. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I see a ton of familiar faces in the audience already, and I know a lot of folks catch up on YouTube afterwards, so hi to you in the future. Just in case there's some new folks in the audience, I like to start these with just a little bit of context on what we're building and what we're going to be talking about. So there's really two parts of our project that we're going to cover today. First is the Tableland protocol. So the Tableland protocol is a protocol that powers a decentralized network of databases for storing data natively in Web3. We really focus a lot on the metadata behind NFTs. So what's really cool about Tableland is you can store metadata and associated data to NFTs and then govern how that data can change with on-chain rules. So rules around ownership and membership and lots of other interesting concepts. So what that really powers is a new stage for a new type of NFT that's really dynamic or executable. And we're starting today with NFTs, but we're really building a very unopinionated database that we think can power a lot of applications in Web3. So if you're not an NFT builder, we think we can already serve some really cool features for you. And that brings me to the second part, which is the Rigs NFT. So I know a lot of folks join our town hall to hear about the Rigs NFT. And so the Rigs NFT is the first NFT launched on the Tableland protocol. And it's also our community NFT, where we're building in a lot of features for community members to contribute to the network and contribute to the project and actually get reputation and some cool visual elements to their journey through the ecosystem. And we're going to be sharing some cool updates about that today. So a little bit about the format. We typically just blast through a ton of updates from the team across both of those big projects and then just general ecosystem updates. And then we typically in the past have done Q&A at the end, or just kind of rolling. If you want to drop questions in general, we'll read them out loud. But I think today we're going to do it a little bit differently, and I want to actually open it up to community discussions and team discussions through the sort of three different phases of the conversation. And so I'll do that, and I'll try to moderate that and keep it moving forward. But there'll be plenty of opportunities for you to jump up and ask your questions, or if you want, bring out a topic from left field, and we're happy to address those. If you just see cool things happening in the ecosystem and want to talk about them, there'll be space for that. If you have questions and you don't want to hop on stage, you don't have to raise your hand. So raising your hand, if you've not done it before, it's just a little feature here in this call. But if you don't want to do that, you can just drop a question in general, and we'll try to pick those up and answer them. So if you have been following the project, you know that we went quiet for a couple weeks there. And that's because we were between seasons. So we just wrapped up what we called Season 4, and we're just kicking off what we're calling Season 5. Season 4 was a really huge season for us. I dropped a link to a tweet I put out a few weeks ago in today's agenda. Actually, if somebody from the team could just share the link to the agenda in docs down in general for folks to look at. But in there, you'll see there's a tweet from a few weeks ago where I just outline, 10 or 15 major things that were delivered in Season 4 in just like 3 months. And basically, the Tableland network didn't exist before Season 4. Rigs barely existed. I think Rigs was like a week old when we kicked off Season 4. And so really everything in the ecosystem came alive in Season 4, and it was really exciting, and just so many things were delivered. And I put a couple of cool highlights that, if you're a rig collector, if you're a builder, or anything in between, you can go and poke around there. But we were all really excited for Season 5, and we do a pretty comprehensive planning sort of ritual where we spend the first week, we call it our convergence, and we do a lot of creative sessions and really think about the higher level strategy and what needs to get done. A little bit loose on the agenda, but lots of time to come together. And then we follow that up with a pretty regimented planning week where we come together as guilds and subgroups within the guilds and actually plan out what are the milestones and what are we going to get done. And so we're done with all of that. One really cool thing this time around is that to kick off that convergence week, we had a day of public convergence where we invited you all in to share what you've been up to with us and just share ideas and brainstorm and get excited with us. And that was awesome, and we'll hear a little bit about that recap in a minute. But for those of you that joined that as well, thanks very much. It was really fun joining you all in Gather Town, and we'll do a bunch more of those, and we're going to use that space a lot more going forward too. But so today is going to be all about that Season 5 launch. To be honest, we're only really 2 or 3 working days into Season 5, so we don't have a lot of big things on the builder front to deliver today. But we'll start talking through some of the things that are coming. And then on the rig side, we're going to have some cool updates at the second half of the call. So I guess let's just jump right into the general updates. And for that, I think there's a couple sections here that I'm going to kick it over to Brian to share progress on.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Hey, everyone. So a couple updates on the community front and just some event things. So we're going to have our season Twitter Spaces series kicking off later this month. We're going to be actually getting to weave in folks that have gone through the pilot program into a few of these sessions. So that will be a lot of fun. We're going to include them with some other sort of industry leaders in the different areas they've been focused on and building in. So stay tuned for that. And then, yeah, just a more thorough convergence recap. A lot of you probably joined us. We had a really great turnout for that. It was a lot of fun. And we had some great presentations and breakout rooms and a special rig session where we got to hang out with other folks in the garage there. So stay tuned. As Andrew mentioned, we're definitely going to be integrating that space into different community events. And we're really interested to kind of tune in with you all about how you might want to use that space. As for those of you that have rigs, you can actually access the gated garage, and there are actually community rigs in there that we can ride around in the Gather Town world with. And actually, we just built a racetrack in there. So now there's even a racetrack that we can use. So more fun things coming there. And then other things to keep on your radar. Actually, just following up on the convergence. So then after we all met there, we had the team convergence, and that was just kicked off a lot of this planning that has been just processed and integrated into our workflows and Notion planning and all of these things. So Season 5 is really going to be a tour de force. And so really excited. We're going to cover a lot of it today, but more and more things are going to be coming out in the weeks ahead. So just a lot to look forward to. And yeah, I think I pass back to you, Andrew, for more Season 5 overview.
Yeah, cool. I have one question about GatherTown. Is that space something that people here can just use? Like, do we have a link? Like, can they use that link at any time to just come together and brainstorm and build together?
Yeah, we have it password protected right now, but we definitely want to integrate with the community to make it available. And anyone can enter the space, obviously, and then just folks that own a rig can access the garage. But I think this is something that we can definitely have more conversations about with the community if there's more interest to access the space just on your own time.
Cool. Yeah, so private convergence, I kind of mentioned already what that was. We worked Tuesday to Friday after the public convergence, really taking a lot of your feedback and taking our existing roadmap and backlog and really thinking through what we were going to do. I'm really proud of this organization. We've made a really concerted effort over just the last 6 months to get really rigorous about our strategic thinking and trying to pull together the big picture of where we're going and making sure that that's impacting all of the things that we do. And so we have so much internal documentation about our strategy and why we're doing what we're doing. And I think one of my goals this season is to slowly start opening that up so you can all actually read our motivations for what we're up to. And I think we can start, at the high level and then keep drilling in. And there's just so many pieces of the machine that are working really well now that I'm excited to share with all of you. But convergence was all about that. And so the outcome of that, I think, really foreshadowed where we're going in Season 5 and Season 6, really focused, Season 4 was around setting up the technology, really making things work, and that tweet thread that I mentioned that I shared the link to. And season 5 is now so much about growth and building the community, creating opportunities for all of you, creating more opportunities for pilot program teams, and helping steward them through finding their own funding and finding their own legs as they grow, and having them, interweave with rig owners through, alpha and ownership opportunities directly in what they're building, creating new opportunities with partners that rig owners can take part in, and then just continue our really rapid race towards Tableland mainnet, working with node providers and growing the node operators, and building out our protocol and soon our token. So it's really exciting to see how far we've come and where we're planning to go. It's like we simultaneously have a ton of work to do, but we have a fairly clear path from here to there, I think, with just some hard problems to solve, but nothing that seems massive. One of the major things that happened at the end of last season was I mentioned that a lot of we do a lot of internal documentation around our strategy and our planning and things like that, and it's all in Notion. And Sander, who's here on the stage, raised the issue that it was time to start pushing a lot of our technical planning out to you, the ecosystem, and making it more visible to all of you. And so we shifted a lot of our engineering planning over to GitHub. And so you can find now in the notes today that you can go explore the projects across our organization, and actually you can see really detailed planning around all the things we're going to build across all the different projects, and you can actually get involved. You can chime in if it's something that you really need and how you're planning to use it. If you have feedback, or if it's things that you actually want to contribute. I don't know, Sander, do you have anything else you want to add about the projects and the GitHub move? I don't know if he's muted or.
Oh yeah, here I am. Yeah, no, I think you covered it. One of the other reasons for moving to GitHub is to have just a common funnel for everything. So if people create issues or have feature requests, we can immediately funnel those in with all our other planning. So those will go into a backlog and we can adjust from there. So definitely the idea is that those are open to anyone. So if you have anything on your mind, something, of course, if it's something that's not working correctly, we want to know as soon as possible. Also, if there are features you'd like, we want to hear that as well. And we can also use that as a way to kind of collect momentum around different feature requests without having to directly ask everyone. So yeah, really cool.
Nice. Yeah, and so related to that, getting all of you opportunities to get involved, we're going to explore this season launching a few different working groups. We'll start with one and see how it goes, but I think what we mean by working group could sort of be applied to everything from sort of non-technical focus groups that can come together and really track and help digest what's happening in the ecosystem around some themes. I think would be very exciting. It's stuff we kind of do internally, but structuring it with you, the community, would be really fun. And then they go from that sort of non-technical all the way up to fairly technical ones that we have ideas around using Tableland as little working groups in the ecosystem that could potentially flourish off and become their own projects. And we want to help ignite that. And so we'll have more news about that. But it would be a really cool way for people to get involved with the project, and so stay tuned there. So that's it for the for the general updates. Moving on, kind of efficiently here, I think we can jump right into the builder updates. So this is everything related to the node and protocol and build sort of developer tooling. And I'm going to have Carson and Sander take it over and kind of share what's coming for the season and where we are with all of that.
Cool. Thanks, Andrew. Hopefully everybody can hear me. So yeah, Andrew just highlighted that we're moving a lot of the planning, and you can look at all of our a lot of our technical roadmap stuff on GitHub. So I actually just posted into the general channel our sort of landing page for all of our GitHub projects. So anything that Sandra and I are talking about here right now, it should be reflected there in those projects, and you can see, like breakdowns on timelines and what milestones we're going to try and hit for all of these different things. And so I do encourage folks to, just dig in and take a look and ask questions. Each project has a series of issues about or tickets about what's going to get done and how we're going to do it, and even some early ideas or preliminary thoughts on how we might even implement it. So I do encourage folks to jump in and take a look. But the big sort of so what I'm going to do is I'm going to mention the big high-level ideas of what we're focused on this season, and then anything that I miss, Sandra can fill in with details and things like that. Because last week I was gone for a lot of the finalization of the plans, so he can correct me if I'm wrong. But the high-level stuff this season is really about we've got a solid network that is working with multiple validators that are contributing, and so now it's a lot about building out better tooling and improving the developer experience for both validators and builders on the network, in general. And so that means like optimizing our APIs and our SQL specifications. That means making sure that we've got multiple useful ways to do important things that you want to do on the network, like configure the access control for tables, how you actually submit statements and making that more efficient, implementing some new specifications and APIs focused specifically around how developers are using the Tableland API. So specifically things like adding upserts and ways that people can actually, mutate NFT metadata and in-game state in a much more ergonomic way, in a way that they expect if they're used to using SQL. So a lot of sort of like API tweaks and improvements, stability improvements, and a big focus on DX. And as part of that big focus on DX, we're spending a bunch of time focused on building developer tooling. And this is a personal passion of mine. I think if you can build a good set of tools, then that just opens the floodgates for so much more innovation and interaction on the network. And so that's a big piece of why we're focused on that. So some of this involves making it much easier to deploy our actual validator, the node that is running the Tableland network. So there'll be prepackaged releases for that, and a bunch of much more flows to make it much more easier to deploy them, including making it easier for folks to deploy testing frameworks and local Tableland networks to help them test and develop new ideas locally before actually deploying things to the real testnet. There's also going to be a big focus on like showcasing some of the really amazing things that you can do with our developer tooling to build out, interactive and dynamic NFTs and games and things like that. Other features include like a more interactive console, so that it feels like you're using a SQL console when you're working on Tableland. A bunch of things like templating, front end frameworks, and other things like that. And then there's obviously, for a lot of folks that are here, there's going to be a bunch of work on rigs. I'm not going to dive into that stuff specifically here right now because Sandra's going to talk all about that specifically in a little bit. So I'll leave it at that. High level is big focus on DX, tooling, and making the network a lot more fun and easy to use.
Yeah, just to tag on a little bit to the local Tableland stuff. So this is something Joe from our team has been pioneering, and we really wanted to create an experience where if you're familiar with using Hardhat or Forge to develop your NFT experiences locally, we want to make sure that you can do that very similar thing with Tableland. So actually in your tests, you can actually, we're getting really close to a real release of that, so we'll have an announcement about that relatively soon. But you can just import local Tableland, start a local Tableland network right in your tests, just like you do with Hardhat, and it just all runs really fast. So that's a ton of work that went into that, and we'll continue to improve it. And other things, yeah, the the dashboard. Alan from our team has been spending a lot of time on the Tableland dashboard. This is where you can go to create tables, and just from a web-based application. You can do queries there and all that. So it has like a built-in console there as well. And eventually we want to make this dashboard kind of a window into Tableland, so where you can really start to feel how the relational data all comes together. So being able to favorite tables and do kind of explore not just from your cozy little corner of the tables that you created, but just all the tables on the network, and really trying to make that super obvious. So we're going to do a real release of that this season.
Nice. Thanks both. Any questions out there from builders about what's coming, or any requests or experiences to share? Got a moment here? If not, we'll blast into pilot program updates. Cool. So, and also anybody from the team want to share anything? Doesn't have to be just Carson and Sander. I don't know if Joe or Alan, you want to share anything specific about your work. But if not, blasting forward to the pilot program. So as you all know, we've been in pilot program run 2, and we just wrapped up the first milestone a couple weeks back. So I'm going to kick it over to Dan to kind of share what's been happening there and what's about to come.
So a couple weeks back, we had that first snapshot vote, and we've been in the program for almost, I think this is probably about week 6 or so. So a couple of weeks left in the program itself, but the results of that first snapshot, just to call out Q and Gem Spirits. So if you haven't been keeping up, Q had the most votes, and then Gem Spirits came in second. And the way we view this, like at least from like a bounty perspective, it's really just the top 2 teams getting additional bounties. So those 2 teams were awarded an additional grant as part of the pilot program, and Q in particular, just to describe what they do. So you can sort of view them as like a notification operating system for Web3 in particular. So it's anything from, like, if you're a user, maybe you want to track when a certain event happens, like an NFT reaches a floor price, or there's some sort of price barrier threshold that is crossed and you want to be notified about that action. Or maybe it's just like watching a wallet address and seeing some sort of movement change or movement with the balance or something like that. And then on the flip side, Q also like has ways to integrate for developers. So like similar type of theme, but more just integration based instead of a UI facing feature. And then Gem Spirits is a dynamic NFT that they're building out. Like basically you can, if you're familiar with Digimon or like Tamagotchi from back in the day, like sort of that in a Web3 realm where communities can own a particular NFT and help it like evolve through different stages, feed it, things like that. So there's a lot of cool things that they're building there. It's pixel art based. It's pretty cool if you haven't checked it out. So looking forward to seeing what they continue to build throughout the program. And related to that, just keep in mind that in a couple weeks, the final submission, really end of next week, the final submissions will be due for these projects. So final submissions are really just like, it doesn't have to be production grade or anything like that. It could be, local, deploying something on local host prototype based. But those final submissions will be due, and then we'll also be hosting demo days so everyone can actually like participate, join an actual demo session of these different teams, see what they built, ask questions, etc. So looking forward to that. And of course, with that, we'll also have the second snapshot and final snapshot vote. Similar to the first one, just a little bit larger bounty for the teams. So be sure to check out that final demo. Remember, if it was the 22nd, maybe, Andrew, I don't know if Do you recall that date for
Ye-
the demo day?
Yep, 22nd. Maybe I think Brian might share a few more details on what we'll actually be doing
Okay.
there. I don't know if we're ready for that, but up to Brian.
Yeah, I think we've got a lot actually coming together for demo day on the 22nd. So that's just another date for folks to keep on their radar. We're going to host it in Gathertown again and have some presentations. And yeah, it's going to be another just great opportunity for the community to come together, get to celebrate all these developers that have been building the last 7 weeks with the protocol. And yeah, so more to come soon on that.
Cool. Yeah, and pilot program 3, I just have a note in here. We haven't selected the exact date that one will kick off, but it'll be early next year, January, latest early February. So if you are a developer and want to join the next pilot program, keep your eyes open for that, and you can always let us know early, and we can keep you in mind when we do the post to remind you to apply. Any folks out there planning to build for pilot program 3 or interested in it? We'd love to know. So if there's not any questions about pilot program, I don't see any hands, and I don't see any posts in general. So let's just move on to rigs, what I think a lot of people are waiting to hear. One thing before we jump into the main rigs update from Sander, I thought Brian could just share a little bit on some of our rig opportunities that we've been working on, some already rolling out, and kind of where we're thinking for the season.
Yeah, so this is something we definitely are going to be focusing on this season moving forward, is just creating more and more exclusive opportunities for rig holders. So we actually have Miss Handid in here today, and she's going to be joining us Thursday for a little Q&A about her upcoming art project, Vector Equilibrium, that has been, we shared in the chat, in the rigs chat. There's an opportunity for folks in the community to get on an allow list. We also had the Pop Heads raffle that was, I think they're minting later this week actually, so we had 40 spots there, and this is just something for rig holders that we're really going to be investing in creating unique experiences and opportunities for you all season and beyond. So yeah, just continuing to try to cultivate more and more opportunities for you all, and I'm really excited to chat with Miss Handiden on Thursday about her awesome art.
Super cool.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, Sander, let's talk about the garage.
Yeah. So 2 weeks ago now at our public day in Convergence, we did a little demo of the garage and that whole experience. So just if you weren't there, just to recap, the garage is a web application that we built. It's a front end to an experience that's kind of based around a reputation metric that we're calling flight time. And flight time will have utility in rigs moving forward, and this is the initial version of the garage is just kind of the first step in ways to earn this flight time. It's a Tableland based metric, so when you'll be able to query using Tableland, the flight time balance of a given rig. And the initial way we're allowing rig owners to start earning that reputation metric is by doing what we're calling pilot training. So this is a kind of experience similar to Moonbird's nesting. So you'll be able to go to the garage and start piloting your rig and start earning this flight time metric. So yeah, what we left out of Convergence a couple weeks ago is this when we're actually going to launch that first step, and that'll be this coming Monday. So we'll be tweeting about it and trying to get folks to start piloting their rigs.
Yeah, so Monday. So this is kind of the 6-day mark, and we really want to drum this up as much as possible. So we can't actually do any demos here on the Mesa. But if you know folks that have podcasts or YouTube channels, and you're a rig owner, one thing you could really help us out with now is introductions. We'd love to demo this to, people that are interested in innovations in NFTs, that might be interested in where this is going. And we have kind of 6 days to work on this together and try to get this showcased as many places as possible before we launch it to all of you. So just ping us, or if you want to do it privately, open a support request and let us know what you're thinking. We'd love your help there. We have a couple that we're already working on our own, but the more hands on this, the better, for sure.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so one of the cool things that you'll notice when you pilot is that it'll be visible on marketplaces, not only visually on the NFT itself, but also in the metadata to be able to see whether or not a rig is being piloted or not. They're not transferable when they are piloted, so we also are going to add a metric that's like, not for sale or something like that, just to help people realize that, you shouldn't be wasting gas on trying to buy a piloted rig.
Totally. And I'm sure there's got to be a couple questions about that. So just opening that up. No questions. Brian, you've always got a good question.
How easy is it for folks that have more than one rig to integrate with the garage?
Yeah, so right now, we discussed that. So being able to pilot like a in batch, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so the first iteration does not allow that, but it's definitely on our radar. So yeah, let me know for sure if that's something that you're dying for. I know we have some pretty big rig holders out there.
Wait, so Sandra, you're saying like in single transactions or something like that, but you can you go into the garage and like change which rig you're looking at?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can for sure be piloting all your rigs, but we're gonna make it so that you can do like bulk, so you're not wasting gas on those.
Anything
Cool.
interesting in the Solidity development that, unexpected or just developing that kind of feature in a smart contract? What happened? Like, what did we learn?
Well, yeah, I don't know if Dan did the implementation. So if you want to chime in, feel free. It was, as the person that was watching, it was fairly straightforward. Most of the inserts are done from Solidity, so that we have a table called pilot sessions. So whenever you're piloting your rig on Tableland, you start we call a pilot session. So it marks like the start time of when that happens. And then on the front end can just read that directly from Tableland. So the Solidity contract just basically creates an insert into that table, which is owned by the rigs contract. And that's just where all the tracking happens.
Yeah, I don't think, to your point, I don't know if there's anything like super interesting, because it was like a pretty straightforward set of methods that we implemented. But yeah, the SQL aspect coming from the contract is always pretty cool to see. Like, the only call out is maybe some of the optimizations that we made towards the end referenced the ERC, just like learnings from the ERC 721A contract. So that was fun going down that path and just, trying to make things more efficient. But other than that, yeah, nothing top of mind.
Yeah.
Cool. Neanderthal, I saw you had a hand up, but it's down now. Happy to bring you up if you had a follow up on that. All good. Cool. Well, like I said,
One other thing to chat about there is just the concept of flight time is, I think it could be kind of a primitive or reusable by other projects. In a sense, it's like a ERC20 in a way. It's just not transferable, so it's sort of like a soul-bound token in a way.
Yeah.
And the balances are stored in Tableland, which inherit the total ordering and the security of the base chain. So there's no reason you couldn't consider it like just like a different kind of implementation of a token. It's pretty rad in that sense.
So one thing I always like kind of squinted my eyes at in the, for lack of a better way to explain it, in the Moonbird contracts was the way that they were onto the same idea, right? They came up with the idea, but of being able to take your Moonbird off of the market and then start a clock that you could earn rewards from. But one thing, when you look at their contract, those methods are all super custom. It's like nest your Moonbird and things like that. I haven't looked at what you guys have all done, but did you consider making those really generic functions like check out of market or things like that could become standards or reusable?
We didn't do anything like that, but I know we did discuss a bit making just all this functionality just a separate contract.
Well, I was thinking more like imagine if you wanted if you wanted to make that a standard where any NFT could have a function that people could check their NFT out of transfers, like that's the base. Like in Open Zeppelin, you just import that implementation type and add it to your contract and it would work, but then you could override it to include things like flight time calculations and custom stuff. Feels like there's and then having a function to read whether somebody is checked out or not, having a standard method like that would make it so like an OpenSea didn't have to refresh the metadata to find out if a token was off the market. They would just read that function. Just some ideas there to make it like more of a standard or a possible standard.
No, totally. Love that. Yeah, and then once we roll out the ability to basically prove to a contract that you have a certain balance of flight time, then that kind of implementation could be hidden in there as well, like abstracted away,
Yeah.
It'd be super cool.
Yeah, it's also really interesting that score for flight time. It's almost like we have a reputation score, and then there's a name for reputation, which is flight time, and almost that could be thought of as a standard to like get reputation for any NFT. Would just give you a value. Contract could share metadata about what that's named and things like that, but have it really standards ready. Has some potential to making that really reusable.
Yeah, something else that Data Dane and I were talking about was just how one of the limiting aspects of marketplaces today is that for dynamic metadata like in rigs, it doesn't always update. So you have to like literally go refresh the metadata. So we had discussed basically creating some kind of standard that allows a contract to emit an event, and some open source service we could build that people run that effectively just lists events and then uses the open API to auto refresh metadata. Definitely a stopgap solution, but having something like that in place would be good. Maybe see some more momentum around the nature,
Yeah, that's. I actually think I got on the wait list for the OpenSea.
Obviously, the animation URL updates, but yeah, like the traits and stuff. And then another to that too is you want some of those traits not to be included in dirty calculations, So a way to control.
Can anybody weigh in? Is it me that has audio problems or Sander?
I was hearing an echo, Sander, on your last share.
Yeah, Sanders is doing something funny.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that bit about the OpenSea though, I think is really cool. There's another opportunity here, which is to create, even if OpenSea might be slow to support, like, NFT is off market, and updating metadata or getting force refreshes. A really quick solution would be to have a standard way to add it in an animation URL as a layer. So the animation, or so like the application that when you click on the NFT to actually look at it would show like a little locked or something like that anybody could visually see before they buy it. Because except for people like floor sweepers or folks like that, most people are going to look at the actual NFT before they click buy. So at least they'd see like a little lock, and they hover over, and it could give them information about it being off the market. Some stuff like that could be possible. But we lost Sander. Well, looks like he's coming back. All good, Sander. Well, can I hear him? Yeah, I think TLDR there is that pushing a lot of this stuff in rigs towards being reusable kind of standards pieces would be awesome. So some thinking to do there. And then anyway, but back to rigs. So we got 6 weeks till 6 weeks. We got 6 days till the garage launches. We'd love all your help finding ways to spread that word and get that highlighted by folks. And we'll be sharing some more information about it and previews of it as it goes, and share some tweets. So be sure to help us spread the word. And on Monday next week, we'll invite you all into the garage to take your rigs out for the first time. And I think with that, I'm good to leave it. Any last words from the team? If not, let's call it a day. Thank you, everybody.
Cheers, everybody. See you on the Mesa, I guess.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Thanks, Carson. Thanks, Brian.